Every year, there are a few rookie wide receivers who have real fantasy value, especially over the back half of the season. Last year, it was Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, and at some points, players like George Pickens, Jahan Dotson, and Drake London also found some spotty fantasy value. In 2021, it was Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and Devonta Smith. A year before that, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and Chase Claypool. This year, I believe Jaxon Smith-Njigba is going to be that guy and will end up being an insane value at his current ADP. Let me start with this. The road for JSN to break out in fantasy football this year is a bit bumpy. That's why he currently has an ADP of wide receiver 36, usually being taken somewhere around the 8th-ish round in a typical fantasy draft. He has to share the field with wide receivers DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and that means he could have a somewhat limited role on this offense and will have to fight for all the targets that he can get. On top of that, Geno Smith is the quarterback tasked with keeping all three of these guys fantasy relevant. I know. Geno Smith was pretty damn good in 2023. I mean, he certainly surprised me. But would it be a surprise if that was by far the best year of his career and he comes back down to earth this year? It wouldn't be to me. I hope it wasn't a fluke, but there's always that chance, and that adds a bit of risk for Jaxon Smith-Njigba this year. So I just told you why his ADP is so low. Now I'm going to tell you why you should be buying in completely on his price for this year. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that JSN is really good at football. He was the first wide receiver taken in the 2023 NFL Draft, and we saw him outproduce the likes of Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson when they're all at Ohio State in 2021. On top of that, he's put up some outrageous tape. Go back and watch the highlights from the Rose Bowl game in 2021. He had 15 catches on 16 targets for 347 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's absolutely insane. The guy can play ball. The question seems to be, will his talent translate to the NFL? I personally think it will. He's a route technician who has a great feel for space and just always seems to be open. He's crafty after the catch, and he overall just limits the mistakes and makes life easy on his quarterback. I mentioned earlier that it'll be inconvenient having him play in the same wide receiver room as DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, but there's reason to think that he can still thrive despite playing with 2 target machines. At Ohio State, he got most of his success playing out of the slot. He'll be able to play that role in Seattle, and that'll lead to high volume of low depth targets, which makes him even more appealing in any PPR formats. Also, just from a common sense perspective, we've seen him excel as the third option before. If he can outperform Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, what's to say he can't at least hold his own against DK Metcalf and an aging Tyler Lockett? So you already know I love the outlook for JSN this year, but I especially like the way you can build a team around him. He's going late enough that you can throw him on your bench for the start of the season and keep him there until he breaks out over the second half of the year. Also, if DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett get injured at any point, he'll become an instant wide receiver 2 candidate in fantasy. Overall, I like to bet on talent and youth in my fantasy football drafts, and JSN has both of them. Make sure you get him for cheap while you still can before his value skyrockets when everyone else catches on to just how good he really is. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications down below so you don't miss a beat. Also, go follow us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at FallBallSports, and we'll see you next time.